Hello everybody, and welcome to the first of a series I'm making on some niche power scaling. I intend to do more of these, and honestly, I just want to give credit to some more obscure characters that often aren't talked about. Now, it's hard to call Eddie the Head from Iron Maiden obscure, given he's the mascot of one of the largest bands to ever come out of the UK, rivaled pretty much only by Queen. However, most people don't really think of Eddie in the way of power scaling, and it makes sense, because he's a band mascot. He's not really a fighter. Except he is. Like in various different things. So let's go over Eddie the Head's feats of strength, speed, durability, his wide arsenal, and his incredible array of powers. So before we get into stats, I need to express something important about the nature of Eddie the Head. Eddie has various different forms, however, it's important to note that these aren't just phases in his chronology, and they are not separate characters either. In the Legacy of the Beast video game, it's made very clear that each one of them is a separate fragment of a full Eddie. Within the story of the game, Eddie has his soul split and shattered, and all of these ones are just fragments of his soul. That's how in the Ed Hunter game, both Cyborg and Ed Hunter Eddie can exist at the same time. But more importantly, how things like this can happen where they all get together. Eddie in his truest form is an abstract entity representing all of free will, chaos, and expression. So long as free will exists, so will Eddie. I could just end the video there. You could say he's potentially multiversal to outerversal. Multiple universes do exist within the Iron Maiden franchise. There's both our one and Hell. Eddie represents free will across all of them. Depending on how much stake you want to put into the statement that he's an abstract entity, you could put him at outerversal, but I think that might be a bit far. Personally, I think if you want to put that much value into it, I'd say peak Eddie, I'd call multiversal at the very highest, as an abstract entity of will, chaos, ingenuity, and such. He cannot die unless you remove all freedom from the multiverse, but honestly, I feel like that's boring. It's boring to just go, oh, he's outerversal because he's an abstract, because there are abstract entities in other franchises which aren't outerversal. Despite the fact that they're also, in a sense, sort of platonic concepts, but I don't think that's applicable for Eddie. It just doesn't really seem like it would fit. So I'm going to talk about what he's accomplished over his history, keeping in mind that everything I talk about does apply to specific Eddies, but they all should be applicable to the full-powered Eddie if he were to get his complete soul. So all of these feats are from different fragments of his soul, but they are all fragments of one whole soul. Eddie has very little in terms of strength compared to what you'd often see power scaled, but there are some more impressive ones. On the lower end, in the game, Oh, right, so there are two different games related to Eddie the Head, or two primary ones at least. There might be some others I can't remember. I will refer to the Legacy of the Beast game as just the game, while the Ed Hunter game will specifically be referred to as Ed Hunter, because there's honestly very little from that game. So in the game, you have Benjamin Briggs Eddie, who shows the capacity to break through tombstones with a pickaxe. Not that impressive, a regular person could do that. In No Prayer for the Dying and Live After Death, however, Eddie shows he can break through tombstones with his bare hand. Pharaoh Eddie in the game can also shatter his own coffin, and in the comic, Eddie with none of his power shows the ability to put a sizable hole through the Wicker Man. According to weekly battles on Versus Battle Wiki, this feat comes out to 7,946,757 joules, putting Eddie without any of his power at wall level. Speaking of the Wicker Man, in the music video for that song, Eddie was able to stop a car with his bare hands, and in the BBC archives, Eddie is able to smash a building over. Now I should be clear that various Eddies demonstrate the ability to change size. Many different forms of Eddie have appeared in different sizes over time, so it seems like this is just a power that he has. For example, in Somewhere Back in Time, Cyborg Eddie shatters the top of a pyramid just by bursting out of it. Now, I didn't ask for this to get calced because this isn't that important a feat, but a similar feat from the Dragon in Ruby got town level, so maybe this is that too? Then there's Coal Giver Eddie. Now, this is complete speculation, but it's honestly just here for a bit of fun, and honestly, this is completely unimportant. Now, this Eddie seems to take the place of Santa Claus. If we assume that he does Santa Claus's job, then Spinosaurus75 Dinosaur Fan on Versus Battle Wiki calculated how fast Santa would be. Now, I'm not going to say how fast that is until we get to the speed section. However, this would mean that if Eddie, with his mass and all the mass of his toys, with no sled and reindeer, could be hitting at full speed with a force of 3 sextillion, 712 quintillion, 708 quadrillion, 400 trillion joules. That puts him squarely within the large island range. Moving on, in the comics, Eddie uses a bass guitar to destroy mountains on the moon. The explosion created here was calculated by Weekly Battles on vs Wiki as well, to be at 8.87 teratons of TNT, which is within the country level range. But then we get to the absurd things. Eddie in his different world, Storm, and Final Frontier forms has been able to hold planets within his hands. That alone should put him at least within a planet level range roughly. However, in the Different Worlds music video, he then proceeds to toss the damn thing. I would personally like to thank the Monster King Ninten for his help. I have linked his DeviantArt and YouTube in the description. He was willing to calculate this feat for me and he gave me this, of which I understand 75% of what's going on? Long story short, this feat comes out to 1.361 tenatons of TNT, which is dwarf star level. Then finally we have the statement made by the Beast, or I guess the Unmaker, in the comics. He states that a battle between him and Eddie would shake the universe. Now this could potentially be hinting at universe level Eddie, but whether he's being metaphorical or not is unknown. However, he is an abstract concept, so it's not unbelievable. However, this would be only applicable to the true power of Eddie, as any of these individual fragments would not be able to take on the Unmaker. The Beast? Yes, we'll talk about that later. So Eddie without any of his powers comes in at war level, country level with equipment. His strongest fragments are at planet and dwarf star level, and his full power is potentially universe level. This will be short. Eddie has very few speed feats. In the Ed Hunter game, Eddie was able to dodge a missile from close range. We have no idea what was fired at him, but I mean, if we assume it's an RPG, then that's 500 meters per second from a launched rocket. We don't really know. Now, we don't know how far away they were from Eddie, but let's just say they were 10 meters away with an RPG. And we can't use the actual time frame of the game because look at how fucking laggy it is. Eddie would only have 0.02 seconds to dodge in this scenario, and he does. However, we can't really put a speed on him because he just sort of spins around. Next, for attacking speed, we know Eddie uses lightning to attack, which is put at around Mach 286. Additionally, in the calculation from Ninten, Different Worlds Eddie apparently tossed the Earth at 14% the speed of light, which comes out to Mach 122,364. Back to the Coal Giver, with the movement speed of Santa Claus, the previous calc will put him at Mach 8,668. But you can take all that and chuck it in the bin, because Speed of Light Eddie is made of data and pixels and is able to move, react, and fight at the speed of light. I mean, he is just called Speed of Light Eddie. What do you fucking expect? This one goes into 3 categories: the amount of force Eddie can withstand, what he is immune to, and what he can survive his body going through. In terms of force, it's pretty simple. Eddie has been able to no-sell a grenade, casually survive missiles, which, in case you're wondering, he's pretending to be harmed as a ruse, he's not actually injured, and just sit there as a nuke goes off. Now, this could put him within any of the various ranges for a nuclear missile, or it could put him as multi-continental, as the song 2 Minutes to Midnight is a reference to mass nuclear war that would destroy the planet. Then there's Final Frontier, where 2 different times he survives being fairly close to a massive planet-busting explosion. Well, okay, in the music video he is. In the game, he's quite far away. And yeah, he's just fine in space. But of course, I mean, he could generate enough energy to throw a planet at dwarf star levels of power, so he could probably take a dwarf star level hit. As for immunities, Eddie has demonstrated resistances to fire, lightning, and lava, as well as the ability to survive his soul being shattered and scattered across time and space, meaning he has resistance to soul hacks as well. Eddie is able to continue to live so long as free will and expression do too, so that's a thing. This is demonstrated by the amount of body horror that Iron Maiden have put Eddie through over time. Seventh Son Eddie has survived being torn in half and holding his entrails, as well as having a fist pound through his decapitated head while his brains are being scooped out. X-Factor Eddie, meanwhile, survived a vivisection and his brain being cut in half. Multiple forms of Eddie can rip out his own heart and destroy it, which in the case of Shaman Eddie actually harms his opponent. So you can't rip him in half, you can't destroy his brain, you can't destroy his heart, you can't destroy his soul, you can't melt or shock him, and even if you do destroy his physical body, he will survive as long as free will does. As far as I'm concerned, the most reliable way to kill Eddie would be existence erasure. I don't think he has any resistance to that. However, once again, that depends on how much you want to link him to the concept of free will. If you want to say that he is intrinsically linked, then I suppose existence erasure would have to wipe away the concept of free will and freedom, which, yeah, that's a bit more of a problem, but I don't want to talk about that. has a rather wide array of weapons that he has utilized over time to do killy things. I'll just do a big list and only really talk about the important ones. He has an axe, a bigger axe, a flag, a bigger flag, a bunch of shields, multiple swords both western and eastern, a giant pitchfork, and a bunch of guns. He has been shown to use a plasma gun, a gun made of 4 machine guns, and a Gatling gun. Eddie has a flamethrower, which is a flamethrower, and then his weapons just get stupid. First off, he has Mjolnir. Deadass. Thor Eddie. It's a thing. Hammer. Football Eddie uses deadly soccer balls that light up and explode. Coalgiver Eddie uses exploding presents. And Pharaoh Eddie can summon a giant laser-firing pyramid. I don't remember that from Power Slave. Phantom Eddie can spawn a piano from hell that destroys everything when he plays it, and anything he doesn't kill is put to sleep. Then of course he has the guitar that destroys mountains on the moon. He can summon a nuke with a button, and has an artifact that straight up blows a planet away. How strong is his explosion? Well, if Versus Debating Wiki has taught me anything, it's that planet busting is always something above planet level, and moon busting is usually planet level. So assuming it's the size of the Earth, we do some fucking maths about how big it is, pixel measurements. Furthest fragment is this far away. Flying outwards at that speed comes out to fucking fast speed. Overall, his explosion would be equivalent to 275 undecillion, 995 decillion, 450 nonillion joules. That is 6 sextillion, 596 quintillion, 449 quadrillion, 569 trillion, 709 billion, 675 million, 200,000 megatons of TNT, or 6 nenatons of TNT. It's large planet level. It is in the planet range, I guess. I mean, that's disappointing. So yeah, Eddie did survive planet level explosions, although he wasn't in the epicenter, but we know that larger Eddies definitely could take that. He has various modes of transportation as well. He has a horse, a motorcycle, a fucking tank, a goddamn spaceship, and a motherfucking time machine. Yes. Eddie demonstrates in the game that he can switch between different shards of his soul on a whim. So not only are these abilities that specific versions of him has, but he can switch between those versions whenever he wants. This means he can switch between his various normal Eddies into being a tree, a storm cloud, the Grim Reaper but giant, a big monster, the Phantom of the Opera, various different flying forms, a prison, a head that is clairvoyant and can see the past, present and future all at once, an airborne and computer virus, a Wicker Man, a planet-sized cloud, and he can just reincarnate whenever he wants. Most impressively, one version of Eddie is just the sun. So I guess you could say his strongest soul fragment is straight up star level. I don't know how much stock you want to put into this poster. Eddie also has various skills, having been various types of soldier, a samurai, a shaman, a Viking, a horseback soldier, a crusader, a Viking again, a pirate, and a cyborg bounty hunter. Finally, there are his various summons and mystic powers. As Ed Hunter, he can fire weird energy balls from his hand. Mystic Eddie can use indistinct magic, Clansman Eddie can fire shockwaves from his sword, and various Eddies such as Thor, Mummy, and Crusader can summon and fire lightning. As Edward the Great and Scream For Me Eddie, he can summon and fire swords at will. Bass Eddie can fire massive sound waves. Iron Eddie can hit with iron by smashing it out from the ground. Storm Eddie can summon a separate Eddie Stormcloud, which can also fire lightning. Rainmaker Eddie can manipulate and attack with water. Iron Maiden Eddie can do eye things, same with Visions Eddie. As the Wicker Man, he can manipulate fire, and he has many different summons. Grim Reaper Eddie can summon souls to attack, Navigator Eddie can summon ghost pirates, Trooper Eddie can summon ghost cavalry, Hallowed Eddie can summon evil crows, Eddie in the comics can raise the dead for a corpse army, Soldier Eddie can summon his tank from nowhere, and both Eternity and Number of the Beast Eddie can summon the Beast as a servant. Then he has miscellaneous powers. Apparently, Eddie has a bunch of arms in his throat, as well as a separate Snake Eddie. He can teleport, put you in coffins, materialize out of nothing but clouds, animate a still image, and his powers apparently bypass intangibility. Finally, he can time travel, and literally shoot people back in time. As in at the end of the Ed Hunter game, he blasts you backwards through time. Oh yeah, Virtual 11 Eddie. He can pull people into his virtual world, which he seems to have full control over. So So ignoring the real-life accomplishments of Iron Maiden and Eddie the Head in popular culture, here are the various accomplishments of Eddie the Head over time within fiction. Eddie has killed Margaret Thatcher, Paul Diano, and Icarus from Greek mythology. He was able to kill Horus, who is an Egyptian god, of which exists so long as any faith in them does. Now, Versus Battle Wiki says he gives him a true death, but I don't know if he does. He doesn't really seem to in the comic, but he might in the game, so it's not impossible. I haven't gotten very far in the game itself. He fought off multiple characters, each using large fragments of his soul to power themselves, and most impressively, he fought, killed, took the place of, and uses the Beast. The Beast was a character who, upon being weakened, was releasing shockwaves of causality across all of creation that warped reality. I don't know how to quantify this, I don't know who this really applies to. Was it Eddie who was releasing the shockwaves? Was it the fact that the Beast was holding shockwaves? I don't really know what's going on here. Edward T. Head is an abstract entity that exists so long as freedom and expression does. Even without his power, he has war-level physical abilities. His various forms can out between island, country, and planet level, with some reaching dwarf-style levels of power. At his full power, he could be anywhere from universal to outerversal, depending on how much worth you wanted to put into his existence as an abstract platonic concept. Honestly, it's up to you, but I wouldn't stretch it too far past universal. He could react to stimuli in 0.02 seconds and move and fight at the speed of light. Eddie can survive large planet-level explosions, is immune to fire, lightning, and magma, can continue living with his body, brain, and heart destroyed, and can continue to fight after his soul has been shattered and thrown across time and space. Eddie can time travel, has planet-busting weapons, can punch someone back through time, manipulate fire, lightning, water, metal, sound, and shockwaves. He can summon armies of various types of troops from nowhere as well as swords, bypass intangibility, drag people into his own personal virtual reality, and become the Grim Reaper himself. He is highly experienced and skilled with various weapons as well. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and once again thank you to Monster King Ninten for the Different World Eddie Calc. Highly recommend Iron Maiden if you haven't listened to them, unless you're not a fan of heavy metal, in which case that's all cool. Probably wouldn't recommend it if you're not a fan of the genre, unless you're one of those dumb people who thinks that all heavy metal is just screamo, in which case you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry, but it's a dumb opinion. Dumb opinion. I mean, here's Nightwish, this is heavy metal.
I wish for this night time to last for a lifetime. The darkness around me shows off solar sea.
Sure sounds a lot like screamo to me. Next time, I'm not sure what I'm going to be looking at. I might be taking a look at Shizao, obviously the final part of the Godzilla Strongest video, but that's completely not even really this kind of power scaling, it's a completely different kind of power scaling. But yeah, bye-bye.